Good afternoon, everybody. This is Griffin here with Motility, resuming on our parts training this afternoon for 3 p.m. Eastern, covering parts ordering and receiving. So for those of you who were on this morning, this should follow suit pretty perfectly with what we talked about, adding parts records into the system. Now we're going to talk about adding those quantities in correctly, how to generate these purchase orders, and just familiarity with that process as a whole. So as always, we'll give a few minutes for everyone to get logged in and joined on the audio. So I appreciate your patience. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. All right, everybody, thank you for waiting. Looks like we've got everyone here for this afternoon, so let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who were on this morning, thanks for sticking it out through today. I know we've had quite a bit of information thrown at you, so by no means does anybody learn this system or even one module at a time overnight. So it's definitely going to take a couple repeated visits, probably some retraining, some Q&A. So again, if you're stepping away from this and still want to see more, obviously over the next couple of weeks we will continue these trainings. So hopefully it does start to make sense, especially with having seen a lot of the master inventory portion. I know this scares some folks because your previous system for tracking parts might not have been accurate as well. And we don't want to inherit those errors and data inconsistencies into a brand new software just to repeat them. So obviously we really want to make sure that everything is understood. So again, questions, concerns, please let me know throughout. I'm happy to answer where I can. Otherwise, let's talk about purchase orders and receiving. To do that, I'm going to launch, as always, probably company one. Mainly, I continue using that record because there's more information in here. We've used this more for our tests. So let's get started. I think one of the largest complaints, not necessarily complaints, I would say, but the biggest questions I get are, where do I create a purchase order? I see here general purchase order, number 203, and I'm throwing a curveball at you at the beginning. This is not for parts purchases. In fact, this GPO, I would heavily recommend. This whole left menu tree, we haven't talked too much about customizing. I know I've spent a lot of time talking about the field headers up here at the top, but you can customize this screen view so that you do not allow access to different parts of the program that someone shouldn't see. Now, of course, our permissions can prevent that, but it's frustrating for a user to click on this and say you do not have permission to this. They think they need it. In reality, they don't. So every user can customize their list view over here by going to Tools, Setup, Parts, and Service Tree. So let's say I'm not a service employee. I don't do any cashing out. I do look at parts inventory, but maybe not these other three items. Hit OK. Now, look how much easier it is to work from. This is per user. So if it's attached to my login, so if I do this on my PC and I get up and someone else logs in, they are going to see their custom parts and service tree. So another advantage to using this tool is, let's say every time when you log in, the first thing you want to pop up is your dispatching calendar. You're a service writer who dispatches everything out to techs. So, okay, now let's get out of this screen. Let's get out of this. Let's say first thing in the morning, I click on parts and service. It doesn't even bother. It just opens right up with that dispatching calendar. And when I get out of it, I'm back to my main invoice listing. So whatever screen you want to pop up automatically, just highlight it here in this table, and that will be the screen. So if I'm a service employee, likely I want the service invoice listing to open every time. I don't want to have to click off of the parts screen and say, okay, now here's my invoices. Just a little thing, a quality of life improvement that should make navigating a little easier. From here, we want to talk about GPOs. So like I mentioned, GPOs, we don't want our parts team using. Now, when would you use that general purchase order? That is for transactions that occurred outside of the system. So for example, my technician went to Home Depot. We sent him with a company card. He bought $120 worth of shop supplies. We are not bringing those in with part numbers. We're simply dumping them into our shop supplies cost account or our inventory account so that we can then sell those freely or let them calculate automatically on our service tickets. There's no part numbers associated with that $120. It's just there's a bucket of, nuts and bolts, lumber, caulking, you name it, coming out of that $120 purchase. That is not a parts transaction. That is a general purchase transaction that is usually done by the accounting department. That's not to say your service or parts shop would not be doing GPOs, but just good to know that typically that's not where you're bringing parts into the system. Other examples of GPO purchases or general purchases could be rent transactions. I could create, general purchases like for vending machine snacks. Again, all of these examples I have given are not true part numbers. A true part number does not belong on that GPO. Let's get it, getting that out of the way. Take GPO out of the equation when you're thinking about ordering and receiving. So now we're just focused on these three items: purchase ordering, the order list itself, how to search those purchase orders, which we've shown, it's pretty straightforward. And then, of course, the same three for receiving. But I still don't see new purchase order. Well, the system does not want you creating a purchase order. It wants you to do so from the parts order list. I'm going to wipe my order list out so it's blank so you can see what it looks like by default. And it's simply a screen where you fill in your parts and it will populate, those parts onto your purchase orders when you create them. Okay, so this screen, obviously, you go in here, type in the part number, 123. Okay, which one? It looks like I've got two references, one from Vaughan, one from NTP. We're ordering from NTP. I'm getting 5 of them, one per package, one per packaging ratio, I should say. So I should have 5 quantity at the end. There's our cost price. But otherwise, I'd part different vendor, but that's okay. You can create multiple purchase orders at the same time. So if I have 5 vendors in this order list and I hit create purchase orders, I'm going to have 5 separate purchase orders, one per vendor. Or we could let this list accumulate throughout the day. Our team members can add parts to the order list directly from an invoice if they need to be ordered special order. However, we'll talk about that here shortly and do a special order purchase order and receiving ticket. But for now, we're just going to do a general stock purchase. When I have items on this purchase ordering list, it is expected these are not items for a customer per se. They are stock purchases to replenish items sold each day or to fulfill, this year's or this quarter's sale to make sure that we have, the store setup required to get these items out of inventory. Now, if you don't want to do this by hand, where you're pulling an item sold report, seeing all the parts that left the system, and then adding those back into your order list, you could use what we call our suggested reorder. Now, I mentioned this briefly when we were looking at the master inventory, so let's take a look at that. Every part can be coded a reorder method, simple min max or suggested reorder. If I pull up my part number 123, you'll see that this part's still sent to simple min max, trying to agree to these 2 fields. Well, we're below our 1,000, but we're above 2, so we're within the range we would expect. If I change this part to suggested reorder, now it's going to be included in my suggested reorder routine when I run it from the order list. What does that mean? It means the system's going to take our trend data, so our previous sales history. It's going to take any orders or lost sales also, and calculate, based on our current inventory values, how much we should be ordering. Okay? And since I'm setting this to suggested reorder, and I have plenty in stock, based on my trends, it's not like I'm selling these like crazy, probably this won't even recommend this part, but know that your parts could be coded this way. Now, here's the caveat. If you create, if we start up the system tomorrow, you're not going to have this trend history. Now, we will convert in historical information, but likely we won't include, sales trends. These are going to be calculated as you use this Infinity software. Well, with no data here, the suggested reorder kind of messes up, right? It doesn't have good data to run off of. So usually our recommendation is to run your store with a simple min-max, to use to populate your order list. And then once you have that trend data, usually 6 months, I recommend a year. I think a year is enough data in there for it to calculate appropriately for you to then rely on it to populate your order list for you. So again, I would not suggest setting your parts reorder method to suggested reorder at the start. Let's let the system accrue a bit of sales history, order history, lost sales history. Then we'll be very specific and usually recommend the correct quantities for you. That makes sense. Let's say 6 to 8 months down the road, you're ready to set every part to suggested reorder. You don't have to go one by one. There's a tools parts mass update. And what is that doing? It's going to update all the records I searched up. So let's do this by vendor. I'm going to search all parts assigned to NTP. hit list, pick one of them, doesn't matter which. I have 818 part records for parts from NTP. Now that I have search results and I can work next, previous through these, of those 818, I want to mark all of them suggested reorder. So now that I've done my search first, I go to Tools, Parts Mass Update. This process will change all parts that were turned on our inventory search result, 818, and I want to set all of these items to reorder method of suggested reorder. When I hit process, it's going to change all of those records. So not only can you do that for this, look at all the other items. You could code all NTP parts to a class like we talked about this morning, or this afternoon, earlier, I should say. Again, lots of functionality here where you can stamp in mins and maxes, a lot of different pieces of info. So let's just keep that in mind. So again, I recommend setting suggested reorder a little bit into your history of using Motility or in the Infinity product. Eventually, you will be able to migrate to that and let the system dictate your orders. With all of that backstory now, let's go ahead and run the suggested reorder routine and see what it offers to us. So I'm going to go ahead and hit suggested reorder. I can pick by vendor, or I can say company-wide for store A. Maybe I don't want to include the order histories for parts sold in B, C, D, and E, but I'll just go ahead and say this. I'll say all entities, and I will say no source. I'll exclude obsolete, non-stock, miscellaneous, and clearance items, and let's go ahead and create a new order. Keep in mind, this is a demo environment. There's not a ton of active data going in and out of the system. So really, it offered me one part, this training hitch, part number 032190. It mentioned I should have 11 in stock. So again, if you look down here at the bottom, we have 9 on hand. My min and maxes are at 20, or my min is 10, my maximum is 20. So to get this in line with our min maxes, it's going to go ahead and have us add in 11. But that is because it is, this one's actually still set to min max. So that suggested reorder routine can populate items from both. It's just dependent upon, what we're looking for, what items that we're adding. So again, I would just keep in mind, you have a little flexibility here as to how you populate your order list. So if you want to add a bunch of different parts at once, you can hit add multiple parts, find a bunch of them, everything in inventory. Here's what I do. Search for everything with a total on hand of 0. Oops, remove that. Here's every part with an on-hand count of 0. And by description, I can work down the list and say, well, we need to order these. I saw a couple of these on my item sold reports. I'll just add a few just to get us some records and hit OK. Now my order list has what we need. I'll throw just quantities of one of each for our example. Okay. All of these parts are set up for NTP. Okay. You can also check things if you notice down here at the bottom. Vendor information, like what is their totals, what is the cost for all of these parts that we're adding. I can even check availability. Because NTP is set up for electronic communication, we can check some of their warehouses based on that availability. I am in a demo environment, so I'm not hooked up to the NTP's electronic communication, but if you do get that integration set up, you'll be able to check stock, and then when you create purchase orders, this will automatically ping their database and they'll start fulfilling your order. You don't have to submit to them a file. You don't have to print out a PO and mail it to them. They will get this automatically. Okay, let's go ahead and create this purchase order. There it is. It's going to populate our entity, who we owe when we do receive this information in or receive these parts, the created dates when we're ordering it. It will automatically populate my order date when I click the Order Now button. When it's expected, when it's modified. Let's get out of this ticket. I've created a PO, but I didn't order it. Well, where does it go? Well, in our purchase order list not fulfilled, that we get to that by clicking on number 200, purchase ordering. Look up there at the very top. There's our order. I can see that it needs approval. How do I approve this? Well, within every purchase order, you can set up approvals required to get these items completed. I am an administrator in the system, so I can ignore the approval because I could approve and order items that, I've created. I don't need approval from anyone. So I can go in here and click order now. I'm going to hit no here because I don't want to send this to NTP electronically. Like I mentioned before, I'm not hooked up to them, but I'm just hitting no for the sake of our example. If you notice up here at the top, it's going to try to print out my purchase order. I don't need a copy, but there is the ordered PO at the top. And you can see, just like our other screens, everything is dictated by a status. So if I want to see everything that needs approval, as a parts manager, I can go through and approve based on status. I want to see everything that has been not ordered, right? We created a PO, but we never ordered it. Why? Well, I have stuff back in 2017. Is there any advantage to holding this information here? Absolutely not. I would open up these tickets, mark them with a status of voided by hitting void, clean up. There we go. Unfortunately, you clean these up one at a time, and that's a lot of records to wade through. So try not to let your invoice counts or your purchase order counts get out of hand. Void and clean this list up. So if something's not truly on order or it doesn't need to be ordered, look at all these $0 invoices. These are just wastes of space. And how much harder is it to navigate and work from this screen if you have to ignore some of these because they're fictitious or they're not real? It's much more difficult. Keeping this list clean is akin to keeping your parts invoicing list clean or your service ticket list clean. It's just going to make the system easier to use. So we've created our PO. Let's talk about the approvals first. So I didn't need approvals because I'm an administrator, but for your staff and team members who will need approvals, we can set these up in the edit, modify, bear with me here, PO approval settings. There it is. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that I can set up approvals for any one of these 4 documents. So for example, for my purchase orders, my general purchase orders, and my unit purchase orders, I want to require approval. If I don't check all suppliers, the system's expecting me to put an entity here. So for example, let's put in, I'm going to use an archaic example, but STAG. Okay, so if I order from STAG, I need how many approvals? Just 1. I could put 2 here or more. And now I'm saying if we order anything over a penny, all the way up to $10,000, or why don't we hard cap it like we did with the NTP one, and say anything in the $9 billion range should be needing approval. And if you notice on the one below it, NTP is only going to ask for approval if it's over $6,000, or I'm sorry, $5,000. So, or I could just say company-wide, no matter which vendor we work with, right? Take the entity number out. Every PO needs approval, so we set it up just like this. You may ask, how do you assign an employee approval? It's a security permission. So when we're setting up your users, in the security profile, certain users will be able to approve, most will not. That will allow this portion to work. And we could not create those purchase orders without approval. Do you not need approval at all? If you notice, I can set certain employees need approval to order. Okay, so if I need all of my parts managers or sales manager group to be restricted, we can do that. You can restrict by employee, or we can just say all employees need approval. So depending upon how you want to set this up, or even if you want POs, approvals, we can turn these on and off. That way we get around needing someone to approve our orders if you do not track those. Okay. With that being said, it's been a few days, right? We ordered our purchase order. It's sitting out there. Well, today we got a package. So a lot of folks just go right to the receiving tickets and create a new one, which you can do. You could click, we could click over here, new receiving ticket. I could go into my PO number dropdown. I see the most recent order was from NTP, hit import, great, everything's here. That could be your easiest way to find this. I prefer, let's get out of this ticket, not going to save it, is to go back to the purchase order that was created. So if it was ordered, where would it be? It would be in my purchase ordering list, not fulfilled, under the status of ordered. What company is it for? NTP. As you can see, there's still a lot of those. How do I filter down even further? Well, I know I ordered it and it was in the last couple days, so I can see it up there at the top. Again, the more pieces of information you have available to you, the better. And we'll go ahead and get right back into that purchase order. Within the PO, you can create a receiving ticket linked to it automatically without having to import the PO information. So if I hit new receiving ticket, here it is, there's NTP, there's my PO, there's who the payable's owed to, here's all my parts. Now I just have to assign it a reference number and continue. So what is the reference number? Well, parts may have a packing slip number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or maybe you have the true invoice number. Whatever the case may be, that is the invoice number that accounting sees when they go to pay this. So we want to make sure that this is relevant and matches what the accounting team is going to get invoiced by, because otherwise they're not going to be able to find this payable on NTP. Whatever naming method you come up with, that's up to you all, but this is what accounting will find to go pay against. So we want to make sure that it's something easy for them to find. Every invoice should have a separate unique number. We shouldn't be reusing entity reference numbers. So how do I proceed with this? Well, the main thing is just marking everything, what we received and what we didn't. Well, I ordered 11 of these training hitches. How many did I get? I got 11. I ordered 2 of this next part. How many did I get? I only got 1. This next rubber bumper item, NTP sent a note with our package that says, we no longer stock these, we only have 2 remaining. So I'll receive the 2 they gave us, and I'm going to place the other 2 on back order. Okay? Assuming they're going to get those later. We'll find out. The rest of my package was here. So quantity of 1, quantity of 1, quantity of 1, quantity of 1. Perfect. All right, everything's here. We want to double check our costs. Remember, the costs are coming from the system, but if there's been a change, you need to make that match the invoice. Whatever their packing slip total or invoice total should match. But it's not going to match without freight. So if you're being charged freight from a purchase for NTP, you can come down here and type in FR. Freight part, a quantity of 1 received at the $22 they charged us for freight. So that will itemize here. You'll see the rest of your parts total, and then everything should match on my invoice when accounting goes to pay this. If not, they're going to come back through and request information. If this was a drop ship purchase, it would be checked off as drop ship. That's what you see here. The pricing information, list price isn't really as relevant here. We're only concerned with the costs at the moment. And we can assign our bin location, right? If there's no bins for this part, it won't find one. I could go in here and just type in a new bin, bin A1. This also belongs in bin A1. This is in B2, B3, C1, C2. Okay. Hitches apparently have their own bin that it defaults to. And then, of course, there's no bin for that freight item because that's not a real part. So now what do we do? Well, as a parts employee, I could hit receive now. It's going to ask me about my bins. If I want to create these, I'm going to hit no, I want it to post. This is warning that the entity reference number we've just typed in has already been used. So I don't want to accidentally double, post this to the same reference. I'm going to add some uniqueness to it. Kind of a crazy number. But now let's try this again. I don't want to fix those bins. I want to create them. I want to create the whole receiving ticket at this time. I don't want barcode labels either. Right now, I slap them on and put them on the shelf, hit yes. Otherwise, I'm just going to hit no for the sake of our demo. So from here, this step is going to be dealership specific because we just received the parts in. So what does that mean? That means that our parts department quantities have gone up. So if I check the quantities on any of these, this has an on-hand quantity of 1. This has an on-hand quantity of 1. This has an on-hand quantity of 1. I have 20 of these hitches. I had 9 before, plus the 11 we just purchased. So as you can see, all of these items have now added to inventory, but I still haven't done the last step, and that's post this ticket to accounting. So while our counts are correct, the inventory value hasn't gone up. Right now, what would I expect to debit my parts and accessories asset account? This amount. But if that hasn't happened yet and my inventory or my accounting team pulls an inventory report and tries to match up the balance to what's in the GL, it is not going to match. So how do we get it to match? Well, when you post this receiving ticket to accounting, that will generate the payable to NTP and put the debit against our asset account for these parts. Biggest question is, who is going to be doing that? Is it the accounting team is going to come back in and find all the not posted to accounting tickets? That's fine. How does that look? Well, they go into their receiving tickets list and they click on everything received, not yet posted to accounting. So my accounting team is behind. Here are a lot of items that have not been posted. Okay, so my accounting department has been behind. All of these ticket values are not in accounting. So if you took the sum of every one of these costs, 13,000, 8,000, 179, all of this, none of it's in accounting, and that's an issue. So you want the receiving list. The open one is receivers that have been created but not yet received. These probably all need to get deleted. The received list, which is what we're talking about, this list should be as tidy as can be. Unless there's this much of a delay between the parts department and the accounting team, these should be getting posted in real time. Once they are finally posted to accounting, they show here in the post to accounting list. Okay, so let's see what that receiving ticket that we posted looks like. It's right here, posted to accounting. The accounting transactions can be found here. Debit to inventory, credit to accounts payable, and then our freight debit to costs. Everything looks good. Problem is sometimes this is still not enough. So what does that mean? Well, sometimes there's still questions as to what was actually in the ticket, what actually got received. There's a view images folder. So just like we've talked about on the service side, there's a dedicated folder for every receiving ticket. Well, the largest dealerships I work with, I have them scan or take pictures of their documents, packing slips, the invoice of the ticket, and they attach those here. So there is no question as to what was actually dropped off compared to what was in the package. So I would highly recommend maybe getting your parts team to take a photo, forward that photo to their desktop, and then adding that here to show, what all happened on this receiver. That's less legwork for your team to have to do by chasing you down and figuring out what happened if all of the relevant invoice information can be found on the screen. So I would keep that in mind. That is an option for you. So we've gone ahead and received all of these parts. What does our purchase order look like? Well, I'm going to go back to purchase ordering, and I don't see it. Well, that's because the status changed automatically. This is no longer an ordered part, PO. It is partially fulfilled. So what does that mean? That means that some of the items on the ticket have been found, and as you can see, there's an items not received column. Again, use your greater than or less than. So 2 items on this ticket have yet to be received. And one of these I know we put on back order. The other one I just left the quantity alone. So, hey, a second package arrived. Okay, what does that mean? Click new receiver. The system's only going to add the parts in the quantities remaining that you haven't adjusted off. And we'll say, okay, same process. Got that one, looks good. We ordered 2 of these. Oh, but they only sent us 1, and they told us they no longer will have that part. So what do you do then? Because if I receive this ticket, again, give it another packing slip number. When I go to receive this, it's just going to show partially fulfilled forever. And we're never going to get this rubber gasket or whatever rubber bumper this is. So how do I, finalize that original PO, even though we're going to go ahead and order this part either elsewhere or we're just not going to order it at all? That's the purpose of this ADJ quantity or adjustment quantity, is saying that if I received one, we ordered two, and I adjust one of these quantities off, let's go ahead and finish the receiving process. No barcode labels. Remember, at this time, oops, I forgot freight. Accounting would have gotten on me on that because my invoice shouldn't be $8.21. It should be $20.21. So we paid a little bit of a premium for this freight. So I'm going to move the ticket back to open, or to received, I should say. Nope, I do need to move it back to open. I was incorrect. Now that it's back open, I'll add my freight, quantity of 1, cost of $20, and now this agrees to the invoice I received from NTP. So the big takeaway from this one is that adjust quantity will help you kind of remove items from the original PO. We'll go ahead and post this to accounting. Okay. Now let's work our way back to the purchase order, and we're going to be able to find what we need. So I'm going to take that company name out of there. And let's see, it's going to be probably in my partially fulfilled. That's an older one. So let's go put that status back in, partially fulfilled. But funny enough, I can't find it. Why is that? Because I adjusted off the remaining item we were waiting for, the PO is actually going to show up fulfilled. So let's sort by our most recent date. It would have been today. There it is. The ticket's completely fulfilled. Well, how did it get here? Because remember, we're not showing that any more items are needing to be received. If we go back to our second receiving ticket here, you can see that we had one remaining item that we were looking for, and we found it in the box, and I'm adjusting off that existing part that we said we needed. So now I'd probably need to go order that rubber bumper from elsewhere. But in the case of this NTP order, everything is fixed, everything is done, it is completely fulfilled. So every purchase order should eventually land in this purchase order list fulfilled, not necessarily the posted to accounting. If you recall earlier in our session, I said purchase orders do not go to accounting. It's the receiving ticket that does. So what is the only type of document you should see in the post to accounting list? Notice that all of these have the general checkbox checked. That is because only sublet POs and general POs land in accounting. Like we've talked about, your regular parts PO only ends up in the fulfilled list once everything has been received on it. It's the receiving side of the system that generates payables, that posts everything. So this is just something that you'll eventually pick up is you'll know when you're looking at your receiving list whether that ticket item should be in the received but not posted yet. And same thing for the purchase order. You'll start to know that really a PO is going to be in one of two places, not fulfilled or fulfilled. Obviously, you can void it if that order does get canceled, but primarily you're looking for these items here. Okay. So like we talked about, what it looks like attaching images. You can do that through your PO too, but I would always, when a package is received and items exchange hands, I would take a photo of that MSO or that, bill of lading or the, packing slip, whatever it is, and attach that to the purchase order so that if in a year from now there's a discrepancy or a dispute with NTP and they say, nope, we delivered this item, you can pull up that exact document that they gave or, they originally showed you and confirm, nope, this is not the right part number. Here's the part number on the ticket that we, we bought from you all, and it was not correct. So again, little bits of information coming from outside of the system can go a long way in helping educate, not just educate the team, but give visibility across the process as a whole. So we've seen purchase ordering start to finish, as well as the new receiving ticket side. Let's expand upon this, because I know everybody's thinking probably the same thing. How do we do special orders, not stock purchases, but specific special orders tied to a customer? All right, let's do that. I will tell you up front, the rest of the process of ordering and receiving is the same. It's how the purchase order is generated that is different. So let's dive into that. So I'm going to go into a random service ticket, doesn't matter which one. Let's pick this one here at random. And Barry Smith's invoice here, customer needs to pay past bill. Okay, I'll be aware of that in case they come in. Is now, I want to go ahead and order. If you could see our relieved quantities, these are a negative, -9, -6, -9. I'm going to use this ball hitch as our example. So with that in here and these crazy on-hand values, I know that's wrong. I need to get this back to where the current count is. Can't have negative parts physically. So now what we would do is I want to order these ball hitches, and I don't need 7. I need 1 for this ticket. So what do? If you right-click on that part line and hit place on order, it's going to ask me, how many do I want to order? Let's just create the 1 for this one. And I can either place this onto the order list or I can directly create a PO. Most users opt to directly create a PO just simply because it's that much faster. So watch. Place directly on order. There's my purchase order. In the comment section, I have who added the part, what document it got added to, as well as the customer name and potentially their stock number. And then I can rush order this. Go to see who's our vendor on this one. Oh, Stag. So now let's go ahead and move forward and just create this order, right? Everything else looks the exact same as you saw before. So I'm going to click order now. The only difference being we have a comment that specifies, which customer it's for, right? It came from this Barry Smith ticket. It has the invoice number. It has his stock number. I can see who ordered it. Also, if you click off of the part line, you'll see that it's in this blue color, letting me know that it has been placed on order. And when it's received, it's going to be this teal color. So already I can verify my parts team did what they needed to do. They went ahead and got that part ordered. If I wanted to see that purchase order, I could always hit info, hit history, and we're going to see every order, all the demands, all the receiving we've done. And I've actually had to work my way back through this list to assist dealers with their counts because they're saying, oh, no, we should have this many in stock. Well, based on what happened from the first time you had this item till now, that doesn't quite agree with what you're saying. So again, use these transaction logs to assist you. It's going to help you figure out exactly what these quantities should be. But back to our item. Now that our invoice has been ordered, our purchase order has been ordered. So now what does that look like? I'm going to get out of my ticket. I'm going to go back to my purchase ordering. And we've ordered it, so it's not going to be in the not ordered list. It's going to be up here. I'm filtered by date here. Right there up at the top, ordered to Stag. And if you look over here on the far right, there's a column for special order. What that means is it came from an invoice. If you don't see something here, this was a manual order list purchase order. If I don't see one here, this was a manual purchase list order list purchase order. If you do see a name here, that is your guarantee that it came from an invoice, whether it's a parts ticket or a service ticket. Okay? So I see Barry Smith's order here. As a matter of fact, Barry's calling, asking about his order. Let's put in his information, Barry Smith. Ooh, it looks like we have a lot of POs open for him. Let's just take that as bad test data, right? But again, the purpose of cleaning up all these old unclosed invoices is so you don't run into this much information. Let's go back into our ticket. I can see again the service information. I can see everything that was ordered. The rest of the process is the exact same. You create a receiving ticket. It brings in the parts that were ordered, creates a payable to that vendor Stag. How many did I receive? 1. Let's go ahead and put freight on here. What was our freight charge? They charged us $15. And then what's our packing slip number? Well, they gave us packing slip dash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a bunch of random numbers. Receive now, move forward with your process. Attach any images if you find that valuable. and then go ahead and post it to accounting. I know I moved through that second one a little quickly, but I did want to reiterate it is the exact same process. The only difference between a special order and a regular parts order is where the PO was generated from. Was it generated from a service ticket, or was it sent from the order list? And that should really be your best indicator as to, where a part order was coming from or how it should be arriving to you. And we do have quite a few reports that specify by special order. So if I want to see all special order parts outstanding, not yet received, I could go to items ordered received report, click the button that says special order items received, and now I have a running total of everything we've got against everything that's still outstanding. There's also a suggested reorder report. There's a lot here that while we won't be diving it into today, I think is a great learning opportunity for you to just start pulling these reports once you have data in the system and getting comfortable with what you'd like to see and what you wouldn't. But again, the main purpose is to show the differences of ordering from within a document, truly a special order, and ordering outside of it. So that's really all I have on purchase ordering and receiving. I know there's a lot of moving pieces to this, but again, this is a pretty integral part of the parts department working well. You heard me mentioning before, one of the big places that mistakes get made is the wrong quantities get received in. Eliminate these accounting errors before they happen. Otherwise, accounting is going to find it either way eventually, and they're going to have to work through more information, to find that. So just keep that in mind. Again, trying to keep these lists as clean as can be is going to make it easy to work through. But that's pretty much it on the ordering. You're either deciding, is this a stock purchase or is this for a customer? And that's going to dictate your first move. If it is just a general stock purchase, start with the order list and populate it up. If it is truly a special order for one of your customers, you could right click on that invoice, even outside of the system, and see, I have to go through this menu, and see the parts that are on here. So I can see three lines on this ticket. There are 3 parts, and look, that ball hitch that we just ordered is on order. I can tell by the color coding. I know it may be hard to see, but that is a light teal there, indicating that this is on its way. So that's all I have for you for ordering and receiving for today. I know I skimmed through it fairly quickly, but it is a lot of information, just like our other parts modules. Again, expect to see this training again next week or to refer back to our videos. I did reach out, Denny, if you're on our call this afternoon, to the marketing department to find out when those will be posted. So just waiting an answer back. I will be doing the webinars for this week as well as next week, as well as the week following. So just look out. I know I'll definitely give you a heads up there, or I'll have her reach out directly to anyone who has inquired about getting some of these videos posted to our website. Of course. So for now, let's leave the next 5 or so minutes here. If there's any questions on purchase ordering and receiving. Again, this is probably the most important portion of the, of bringing items in to the system correctly. I always reiterate this on the sales side. If there's issues on a deal, they're likely coming from the unit, right? It all starts with the piece of inventory that you're selling. And the same goes for this module. If I stock in a part wrong, at the wrong cost, at the wrong quantity, well, of course our invoicing is going to be wrong. Of course our accessories posting is going to be wrong. There's no way. So, just rely on what's set up, take a look at it. Make sure that the receiving process that you've created internally fits well with your department. Make sure that they have a strong grasp of how these items are getting keyed in, how the pricing is being assigned. Are they doing it directly from the price book? Whatever the case may be, that is your number one place to eliminate errors occurring, is to kind of start there on the purchase ordering and receiving side. Like I mentioned, I'll leave this open for the next few minutes. I haven't seen any other questions come through. But as we get closer to tomorrow, let's talk about what the next webinar schedule is going to look like. Tomorrow and Friday, my understanding is all accounting based. So for those of you who are on the accounting side of the business, we welcome you back tomorrow. Those who don't want to get involved with that, by all means, we will return back to our cadence of CRM, deal desking, parts, and service Monday through Wednesday next week. But tomorrow's first session is a general accounting training at 10 a.m. Eastern. That'll be about an hour for us to review general navigation and how to get through the first couple tabs in the accounting screen. All right, I haven't seen any other questions pop up. I will try to leave this open here for a few more minutes before my next internal meeting here. But again, as always, thank you all for your patience, for some good questions. Hopefully this process makes sense to you, and will continue to do so as we get closer to your go lives. Thank you, everyone. I will let you off the hook for this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow. Thank you so much.